Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum students. Welcome to TEFL. Welcome to another lecture, very important lecture. We started last time a method, very interesting method, very useful method, and the method that all the teachers of TEFL and the students also love this method because it's a fun learning method. Remember that method? Yes, what is that method? Suggestopedia, the method that talks about, suggestion and desuggestion, right? So that is the method we talked about last week, and I ask you to see that, I ask you to read it. Have you read your chapter from your text? You could not read? Why? You were not well? Oh, you missed a lot. My dear students, whenever you start listening your lecture, it is, of course, people feel that, and experts say that before listening to a lecture, a pre-reading is important. Pre-reading means that pre-lecture reading is important. Fine? So once you read something before the lecture, then things are there in your mind. Fine? And then once you attend the lecture after reading that, the topic to be discussed, so then so many questions are there that you can get their answer, by listening to your teacher. And then once you read after the lecture, clear? So then again you make things more clear. So what happened, my dear students? Read before the lecture. Then listen to the lecture attentively. Ask questions, and if you have questions, you can write down the question. You can ask the question to your instructor. You can send those questions to your instructor, and then after the lecture, read that topic again. Do it and see, right, that either it works or not. Generally it works, that you see the pre-lecture reading and the after-lecture reading, and sometime when you read it before the lecture, you make some notes, and you can have those notes with you, and then while listening to lecture, you can get answers to your questions. So dear students, try to make it your habit that pre-reading, of course, pre-lecture rereading, it's important, it's a good exercise. If you do, you would enjoy this lecture. And again, the point is that you would incorporate this, you would assimilate this method well, and I hope you all love this method. Why? Because method itself is very good. I personally enjoy this method because the method where the learners are happy, and the method where the teacher is happy, in fact the teacher of that language is happy. So being the TEFL instructor, that of course I personally I like this method. Why? Because the classroom environment is ideal, right? The students are happy, in fact, and there is respect also for the instructor, and then the power is, of course, is valued. So that's why this really is, it's a good method, of course. That is Suggestopedia. So let's start this lecture number 12. So before that, as usual, what to do? Give the summary of lecture number 10. No, lecture number 11. So that's good. You remember that. Let's start this lecture, dear students. Today we have to start this. We have to continue the last lecture that was on Suggestopedia. So move on, students. Here, what is it? Yes, the review of last lecture. Again, the summary I gave you in the last lecture, that a Suggestopedia, in fact, a method of foreign language teaching, which was given. The originator is, who is our originator? Georgy Lezonov, right? He gave this the method, and the point was he was of the view that the learner should be free of all the psychological barriers, and once we remove the learner from these psychological barriers, my dear students, then learner would be at ease to learn the language, and their learning would be faster. They would learn at a faster pace as compared to a situation where learners are overburdened and learners have certain psychological barriers. So here what method says that the learner of foreign language should be removed. He should be free of all the problems, the worries, stress and all that, right? So that is what the message that says, that of course desuggest the learner, right? I mean, de-suggest the learner means that the learner, if the learner has some problems, some physical, those problems should be managed by the instructor. So again, the basic concept was that, what is it? Authority of the teacher and infantilization, of course. This is the authority of the teacher in the class. Again, it's very a common practice that once the learning is fun learning, there are lots of activities in the class, and the students in fact involve themselves in dialogue and in interviews and different activities. So they need to be somebody who would lead them, in fact, in a professional way. So of course authority is there. And then infantilization, of course the concept is there. What is it? That infant-like learning, that environment, like infant, how infant acquire the language, that they don't have the pressure, they make mistakes and they are not hurt, right? They are not embarrassed. When a student makes a mistake, so children do not get embarrassed. They simply, in fact, feel, of course, it's a learning phase, and sometimes you see that of course, the infants they put verb first and the subject later on. So in this way, they always, the process of formulating hypothesis goes on. So that is infantilization is an important principle of the method. And then again we saw that the comfort level of the student is very high in this method. Well, students, so the comfort level, of course, in this method of the student is very high. So of course a comfortable environment really helps the learner to learn that language, right, well, and learner learns that language fast as compared to an environment where they cannot sit well, or they have problems, or there is noise in the class, for example. So here we saw in the class that the teachers, of course, the students sit on a proper seats, and there is no noise, there are no hindrances in the class, and the students definitely learn, in fact, learn more, and their learning is faster. Again, we saw in the class, my dear students, there was peripheral learning, in fact. Now, what is peripheral learning? I told you last week that, of course, that the realia that you have, the objects that you have in the class, and these objects, we had a detailed discussion on it, that these objects, that the posters that you have, or the maps that you have, or the grammatical structures that you have in the class, so these are what indirect way of learning. And the student, in fact, when they see these maps, when they see these grammatical structures, for example, if you're a teacher of ESP and you are teaching business communication, and if you have a poster on 7 C's in the class, so definitely every day students would see that poster, they would see those 7 C's in the class, and obviously after seeing those 7 C's with examples in the class, they would learn those 7 C's, and of course they could be able to use those 7 C's in their presentation or in their writing skills. So that's why the peripheral learning is a very important principle in this in fact the method, and of course the underlying the message is that, well, peripheral learning helps students learn, and this learning is fast, because of course the environment is right, the classroom setting is important, and that's why now you can think also that can we have this peripheral environment in the class, and if it does, how it works, in fact. And then the teacher de-suggests the barriers and make learning fun, of course, right? Learning is fun. I told you it's a fun learning, it's enjoyable learning. You can take students to your McDonald's, you take students to KFC. So, well, there is a learning, of course. Students play the place order, and of course they sit together and they have fun. So again, well, the learning is what we call it, fun learning. And then student must respect the teacher, of course. Like we had a discussion on it, that the respect is a very important element. Of course, in all methods, definitely the teacher's respect cannot be compromised at any cost. But the point is that here, why? Because this method highlights, method gives liberty to the students to have fun, to visualize, to imagine, to sleep, in fact, and to play in the class. So that's why there should be somebody who would lead those activities, who would administer those activities successfully. So that's why, of course, the teacher's power and, of course, teacher's respect is important. Then, my dear students, of course, the mother tongue in this and translation are used to communicate meanings. In fact, yes, the point is that, well, the mother tongue, of course, is also there. Why it is there? To communicate meanings, of course, and then translation as well. And then errors, my dear student, how errors are tolerated and corrected. I mean, here indirectly, initially when the student makes a mistake or there is an error in the expression of a student, so teacher ignores. Like we saw in the class that when the student says, instead of saying how are you, he say how you, and then the teacher ignores that. So that, here teacher ignores that, and at the end somewhere if he finds an opportunity, so he gives the correct expression to the students. So again, that initially errors are tolerated. And again, of course, once you tell that if you find a fault there and then, or if you correct the student, so again the point is that you increase the barrier on the student, and he may not speak in future. So again, the point is that you want to you want to highlight fluency, and you feel that accuracy comes later on. You correct that student, but not there and then. In fact, if the student says something, he in fact makes some what we call the hypothesis. So you need to care for the students. So these are some of the points that we talked about Suggestopedia, my dear students. Yes, again I would say it's a very important, of course, very useful method. Again, at which level you may have the question, which level? Yeah, some students ask me for this, that this method seems very good for adults, people who come from offices, or who are high officials, if they want to learn this English language, for example. So for them, Suggestopedia works. Yeah, you can say that. Well, and it happens in some good institutions. If you visit some institutions where the language is taught, so yes, they have a particular room, right, where comfort level of the student is in fact valued, of course, is considered, and the students, in fact, they are the officials of different organizations. They come and they are given proper place to sit. And again, the peripheral learning, of course, there are posters around, there are charts around, right, and they are used, of course. So that's why the learning becomes fun. So these are, of course, that is what the summary of the last lecture that we have on Suggestopedia. Let's start today's lecture. Right, good, fine. So dear students, what is it? Yeah, we're talking about Suggestopedia, right? So which kind of materials, in fact, we can use? For example, direct support, text and tape, for example, we can use that, right? So this is what kind of material we need. We saw that it's a really good learning, of course, and you see we remove the problems. In fact, we in fact help our learner of that language to be in an environment where he would not be under the pressure to learn the language, and he would learn that language on his own, and where he learned the language without realizing that he is learning the language. So this is important. If you feel that you are learning something, so that learning again puts you under stress. But the point is, if you are learning but again you don't realize you are learning, this is what the fun learning, that without realizing that you are doing something and you are doing it. For example, if you love something, for example, you love watching movies, and of course that movies are there in the class, so that would be of course your party time. Similarly, if you want, for example, if you love visiting around, of course, if you love hoteling, of course, or if you love drawing and all that, and if all those activities are brought in the class, so yeah, that would be what really of course you would enjoy that learning. So is the case here in this method. We saw that whatever different activities where the students love doing. Again, of course, you can see if you think over this, that well, Suggestopedia, and again for different level, of course, we should keep in mind the level of the students, we should keep in mind the cultural background of the students, and accordingly we can incorporate the material, accordingly we can use the material, accordingly we can use what the reality of the class. So again, the age level is, for example, if you are helping grade 5 students or 6 students or grade 4 students, So then if you bring the maps, they may not be good at map reading then, or maybe they may not be able to help you in fact that much. But again, of course, if the students are adult and they are from the higher grades, so then this map reading can be fun for them and they can love it in fact. So direct material is what? The text, or like we saw in the text, of course, the teacher gives them a lengthy text, and of course the teacher reads them, and the students also read in fact, and then again there is a message behind the text also, if you see the title of the text. Clear, students? So again, that is a direct. And indirect sport also, yes, classroom decoration, of course. Directly you learn something, like you see the teacher talked about the grammar, talked about vocabulary items, fine. Indirect learning is what? The background environment, fine. Excellent environment is there, of course. There are songs, I mean the lights are dim, you see even the class, the room walls, in fact, of course the whiteboard and whatever. So in the realia that you use, the activities that you have in the class, and again, and all the, again, example, if there is of course in a country where it's hot, so you can have air conditioning in there, of course in the class. So these are fine example. If you provide good environment to your learners, so this method says that, well, the learning would be better, learning would be faster. Clear? So good. Direct sport and indirect sports. Direct sport can be text, or it can be audio cassettes, or it can be CDs or DVDs, my dear students, right? Indirect sport is what? The environment that you give. And again, yeah, you might be thinking, well, if you're going to have your own institute after this program, yeah, it's a good thing. This is also scope, my dear student. Yeah, you can establish your own institute, my dear TEFL students. Well, there is a scope also for this business as well. If you want to be entrepreneurs and if you want to have your own center, you can do it, my dear students. There is a huge scope for English language courses, other languages as well, but this particularly for English language. You can help students in IELTS, you can help students in the TOEFL, TOEIC also. So this course would in fact, I would say, would help you a lot. This course is a very diverse course, of course. You can help the students in, of course, in the IELTS. You can help them, in fact. I mean, in IELTS, what do you know? Of course, there are 4 skills are there, and 4 skills are examined, and you can teach students. In fact, these days you must have find mushrooms of institutes are there, and mind you that maybe 10% institute you find some professional teachers, the rest are in fact non-professional teachers. And what they do in fact and they teach with old methodology. Of course, they help students in they help IELTS students through that traditional methods, and ultimately students cannot get good grades. So if you in fact use the techniques that we are talking about, strategies that we are talking about with the IELTS students, or with the spoken English students, or any other language that of course you may be the owner of that center, so you can guide students which method to be used in the class. So yes, there is a scope also if you want to be entrepreneur. Who is entrepreneur, by the way? Entrepreneur, yeah, the one who starts a venture, one who starts his own business, self-employed person. Yeah, it's a good. I mean, mind you, Pakistan needs entrepreneurs, and again, this is a field also we need good entrepreneurs, and you can start, right? And focus on this. I mean, work hard in this course, TEFL A and TEFL B, and I tell you, you can run a very good center. You can run a very good spoken English or other languages as well. You can have institute, right, where languages would be taught. So yes, and this is a training period, of course, that you are undergoing a training how to teach students, and Suggestopedia is one of the methods. Fine. So but for that, yes, my point was that if you want to be entrepreneurs and you want to serve the nation, if you want to teach people language, particularly English language, so you have to have an environment like this method we're talking about, SUG, mean Suggestopedia. So you have to have an idea. Then classrooms, of course, where you have to give AC to the students. Yeah, we have an energy crisis, but you have to earn as well. You can charge the students, and mind you, for the classes, yes, you can talk with corporate world, corporations, multinational companies, local companies. They exactly, in fact, mind you, that they need good TEFL teachers, good TEFL instructors. So you can have liaison with different organizations, with different the companies. These days, all the banks, in fact, want to improve English skills of their employees. all the multinational the companies, all the local companies, all the ministries. So there is a scope in every sector, in fact, provided you are a good TEFL instructor. And what would make you a good TEFL instructor? This course, of course, TEFL A and TEFL B, and then what else? Your practice, in fact, right? So your practice, your reading, your observation, yes, would help you, in fact, and help you in becoming a good TEFL instructor. So dear students, indirect sport, the classroom, decoration and music, in fact, is important. So the point is, this is Suggestopedia. What? Zero beginners are different from false beginners. What does it mean by the students? Who are the zero beginners? Yes, again, you got the idea that D suggests when you remove the psychological barriers, it means that now there are zero beginners, they are starting from the zero. And children, for example, they start from zero. That's why the term is used, tabula rasa, in education, that their minds are what? The blank white slates. So whatever you write, you would see that, they would produce like it. So dear students, this is what that the zero beginners are better than the false beginners. Mean that if the students are blank, if they don't know anything, right, or if you have removed the previous wrong notions or the worries that they have, the barriers that they have, so you can do your job well. But if somebody has some wrong notions, wrong conceptions, in fact, wrong perception, so that would be difficult for you to handle. So that's why this zero beginners mean that, of course, if the teacher has removed his ideas or suggested, so then things can be fine. And again, students are required to talk extempore, not from memorize. Okay, what is extempore, for example? You know that? Alright, without, the point is extempore without off the cuff talk, without a prior preparation. You see, extempore also in Urdu, what do we call it? Fil badi takreer. Kabhi aap takreer school mein the, aap college mein the. So they used to be a competition in our schools as well, कि फिल बधी तकरीर मुकाबला, right, where a topic is given to you, and then you have to speak on that. You cannot prepare in advance. A prepared speech is one where topic is given to you, you do research, right, and then you make a speech on that. Fine. But here, what the students are required to talk, how? Extempore, not from memorized lines. And that is what the need is, of course, that if the student is able to talk extempore, he's able to talk in a different situation, so the purpose of language is served. Then we feel that the learner has learned the language. But if the learner has learned some expression that we saw in ALM, that there are some patterns were there, and the students were given drills, and they learn those drills and those patterns, and once they exposed themselves to an environment, and then they were blank. They could not find a sentence to speak there, because every situation requires a different form, right? So if the learners are able to talk extempores, then it shows that they could adjust themselves in any environment, and they would definitely formulate hypothesis for that. Anyway, so dear students, move on. What is that? That this, of course, students are immersed in the method and forget their past. Ghost mind. The new names are given, new professions are given. So again, whatever they are, they're out now. If you are, for example, a banker in your profession, or if you're an engineer, you are doctor, whosoever you are, but once you are a student in the language class, in the second language particularly, so now you are a student. You are given new identity, in fact, and only then you can, if I feel that I'm a teacher, for example, and if I have to learn a foreign language, if I have to learn Chinese and French, so if my teachers follow this method, so I have to put everything aside. I should start thinking that, well, I don't know anything of any language, so only then I can learn that Chinese. And again, of course, here the one thing more I want to do that, well, the methods are there. You may compare one method with the other, but if you want to have a grip on one method, then for a while you should forget the previous methods and focus on this method. For example, right now we are talking about this method, SUG. So here we need to focus on this method. We should forget for a while. Yeah, you can say at times it seems difficult, because whenever you find one point here and you see that, and you see that point was not there, so you start comparing and contrasting. Fine, but ideally, right, if you want to have a grip on one method, what you can do, you can skip, I mean you can exclude the other methods and just focus on this method. So what happens, students are given new professions, right, new names. Again, once you are in the new world, you have a new name, so you start thinking in that. Again, the thinking in the target language, of course, is given importance. And words are taught in word pairs, in fact, right? This is important. The words are there, but again, what are word pairs, by the way? Two words again, right? And again, you might have the pair of words as well, right? Pair of words, of course. I mean, one word has, I mean, with a small change in the form, the semantic changes also. So words are taught, but how? In word pairs. All right, students. So here, what is it? We move on. That the text should be emotionally and motivatingly powerful. They have literary value, in fact. Whatever text you use, in fact, so it should be motivating also. Like the text the teacher uses in our class, of course it has a message behind. Like, for example, you said no knowledge is power. So now it is a text, in fact, that would definitely motivate the learner. That would tell the learner that knowledge is power. Or you can use a motivational talks, motivational passage. So whatever text you take, a dialogue you use in the class, so it should be what? It should be a well chosen, well selected, and it should have motivation behind. So be careful while, and this method says that we need to be very careful while selecting the method. Then again, musical backgrounds leads to relaxed body and alert mind. Yeah, of course. Once you are in an environment where there is no stress and you are comfortable, you are in fact, there's no stress on you, so obviously you enjoy that, right? And subconsciously you learn, your learning is definitely fast. But if you are stressed and if you see that there is a hammering and there is and somebody is knocking at the door and there is noise in the room, so your performance and the learner's performance would affect. That's why you see that this musical background, again, which kind of music, it depends, in fact, right? Again, your environment, your context. Maybe some people say, well, we can use fast music. Some say we can use slow music. It depends. It varies from the culture to culture, from organization to organization. So again, if you can have a new music and that music is in the back end and you are doing something, and if it works, of course, and as per this method, yeah, that subconsciously, of course, you are focusing on a dialogue or a drill, or you are doing something, but unconsciously there is the music at the back, and that, of course, like these days you must have seen in different hotels. You visit an hotel and you see there is a music at the back, and of course that helps you, in fact, of course, having your food, enjoying your food, and also digestion as well, right? And that's what the point here as well, that the music at the back, right, can. And I suggest, of course, for example, here in our culture, of course, in Pakistani culture, if you can have some music at the back, of course, and encouraging the music could be used. So it really works, in fact. So dear student, now moving on to techniques and classroom setup, right? So we talked about this classroom, that in this method the classroom is bad. No, it's good. Classroom is good. And what do you mean by this good class? It is decorated with what? With posters. Fine. With what? With charts. With what? With pictures. With what? With grammatical structures. With what? With different, in fact, the realia. Why we I mean, if I ask you a question, that why the teacher has given these grammatical patterns in the class, okay? Well, the teacher, in fact, indirect way. See, indirectly the student, see that, first of all, see that the form, in fact, and then they understand, of course, that they internalize that sentence because they see it, for example, 5-6 times. If that poster remains in the class for a week, or if there's a chart in the class and on the chart there is a particular picture, and the picture has been labeled, right? So again, that, of course, if we're considering the level of the class, if this is of course lower level, then of course body parts has been labeled there. So definitely there would be of course learning, and the students would learners would learn about their body parts, in fact. So again, the peripheral learning, in fact, the classroom decoration of yours, we talk about is really important. The lights also, if there is dim lights, of course, as we saw in the class, and then again if the room is very, for example, if there are 10 tube lights in the class, so again that can be a problem. If there is a dark in the room, so again, right, so there are dim lights in the room and there is a soft music going on, in fact. So soft music again, that enhances your pace of the learning of that language, learning of foreign language, and particularly learning of English. Why? Because we are the students of this course. So talking about which music, the soft music can be played. Or it depends, if you could manage that fast music, it can be. But the point is that then your classroom activities could not be done then. So a soft music, fine, that would not become a barrier, of course, that would not hinder your the classroom activities. So it works, in fact. And then again, the cushion environment is there, excellent sitting is there, so the learners enjoy, and they feel privileged also that, well, we are here and we are learning a language. So it gives them a sense of respect as well, that, well, a proper sitting environment is given. Generally, of course, if the experience is that, well, whenever there is a class and the students always blame the administration that they are not given proper seats to sit on. So yes, this is a problem. For example, generally in our institutions, we have this wooden chairs are there, where the learners are not comfortable, in fact. And mind you, of course, maybe for the fresh students, for the young students, okay, but sometime for the second language of the classes, you may have adults, you may have students 40 years age, 50 years age, you may have students from different professions. So the point is, for these people, you have to have a comfortable environment, because people come from their offices. So if you give them good environment, they would definitely enjoy, and the pace of learning would be more, in fact. So again, the classes should be well decorated. Here again, that how you can decorate the class, again, the teachers' creativity. All the assignments could be given to the students. Generally in our country, in fact, once you might have seen in different institutions, and maybe in our B.Ed level course, that there is a subject also where that subject talks how to decorate a class, and the students, of course, the teachers give them assignments, and that, of course, the instructors help the teachers also how to make the charts. But generally in our situation, our scenario, what the teachers do, that they give assignment to the teachers, to students, and the students in fact make those charts. Yeah, the teacher can see that chart, and then that can be used in the class. But finally, of course, for the language learning, if you can bring a chart, and if you, of course, paste it in the class for a week, and after a week you remove, yes, it's good one, of course. And these days you have the Panaflex charts are there, right? So that can be used. Now we are in the age of technology, so things can be done quickly. So yes, if you want to have a successful foreign language teaching, if you want to be a successful, of course, teacher of this language, so yes, you have to provide this environment to the students, in fact. So classroom, and it is not an impossible job, it is not a difficult job, even it doesn't cost you much. Charts can be done easily, but for that you have to have good drawing, good art, in fact. So dear students, these are, of course, the classroom decoration is important. What is it? That good sitting environment, right? Good chairs should be provided, right? The learner can have a table in front of, if you have enough space. And then again, the semicircle sitting, in fact, the form is there, because once you sit in this way, so the teacher can see you, in fact, right? So definitely, of course, this Suggestopedia, yes, it is ideal for which class? An ideal class, and the students are 15 or 20 students are there. So, and you have enough room in the class, so that can help you, in fact. So for a small class, yes, this method really works, because student can directly interact with the teacher, in fact. Well, students, so again, this method says that you won't try to learn, you will learn naturally, in fact. So this is, again, the motivational factor is very important in this method, that the teacher keeps on motivating, and he says that students, you will learn, right, and you will learn naturally, in fact. So again, moving on, what, students? That other technique is positive suggestion, right? So suggest, and this suggestion should be positive suggestion. What does it mean? It can be direct suggestions or it can be indirect. In the direct suggestion, what happens, students? Yeah, teacher tells students that they are going to be successful. So this is what positive suggestions. The teacher should be optimistic about the student, and the teacher should categorically tell the students that they will learn the language, in fact. And this is what a positive suggestion to the students, and students will be of the view that, well, this is language is of course is a fun, and they will not fail, in fact. If you remove this fear of failure from the students, so you will be a successful instructor, the teacher, and the learner would definitely be a successful learner of that language. So that the fear that he will not be able to learn, again, that if I refer to a motivational theory, the theory why, which says that, well, human beings are willing to work. So here this TEFL teachers, instructors, as per the method, technique is that we should anticipate, we should say that, well, the learners are willing to learn, and they are here to learn. And again, we should tell them that they will learn this language successfully. So again, this is what positive suggestion. And indirect, of course, this is also called direct suggestion. Indirect suggestion, my dear students, music and a cool environment, that is indirect. Subconscious level, you provide them good environment, and directly what? Students, in fact, that they will be successful, in fact. Then, of course, visualization, like, see, you make people visualize that. Imagine you are at airport, imagine you are in America, imagine you are in UAE, imagine you are in Saudi Arabia. So again, that you can, of course, and then they close their eyes and they imagine, and then you give descriptions. You give description, for example, imagine you are in Saudi Arabia and you give a description how Hajj is performed. Is that clear? So again, this one is, of course, the point is, imagine you are in UK, you are at the airport. So the point is how you are managing things. So that's visualization is also important. Then you see, and this is again, this visualization is a vehicle for positive suggestions, right? So this is important. And then, because once the student close their eyes, and their involvement is more. They enjoy this activity, that once you ask them close their eyes, they all close their eyes. So again, this in fact shows the teamwork, this shows their unity. And again, once they close their eyes, again, maybe if it's a long class, they relax also. But the point is, once they close their eyes, so they all, in fact, find it an activity, of course, find it a healthy activity, and they love doing it. So dear students, again, choosing new identities, that we saw, that we talked about last class, that, well, students choose target language names and professionals. Yeah, I'm John, I'm of course, see, so different names are there. You can use different English names, right? So different English names are there. Again, the names in the target language. If you're teaching Arabic, for example, through this method, so Arabic name. If you're teaching Urdu through this method, अगर आप उर्दू पढ़ा रहे हैं इस मेथड के जरिए, कौन सा मेथड? सजेस्टोपीडिया के मेथड से, तो आपको फिर वो उर्दू नेम अपने टीचर स्टूडेंट्स को देने होंगे. बात समझ आई है? नहीं आई? आ रही है? Okay, good students. So I said what? That was choosing a new identity, right? So what happened, my dear students? You give names to the students, right? And which names? The names in the target language. Like I gave you example in Urdu, Arabic and all that. So again, you give professions, right? That I'm going to be a doctor, I'm a teacher, I'm a professor, I'm an engineer, I'm a chartered accountant. So yeah, again, professions. And then later, children give their CVs, they give their profiles and personal profiles on that. Fine. So this is what, again, that, see, a technique is there, that you imagine, you make students, of course, imagine, and you give new identities to students. And once they have new identities, they forget their old identities. Again, if in the class you see there are students from various disciplines, and some are seniors and they're officers, and some are juniors, so there might be, in fact, well, this senior junior gap would be there. So this hierarchy can be removed if you give them a new names, right? If you give new names to the students and you ask them to select profession from the professions, so then there won't be any discrimination, and the students would be at one level. They would all be at one page, and then they would be able to communicate. In fact, they would be able to learn the language well. So dear students, another, of course, like we see what are role plays. So very important activity in the class, my dear students. The role plays, in fact, the people who play that role, again, they enjoy. It's a matter of enjoyment for them. Again, it gives them encouragement to come in front of the class and to act also, right? So their acting skills are, of course, examined. Their acting skills are polished. Their communication skills, of course. Then their interaction, in fact, and their confidence as well. And the language learning is there. You see, I mean, of course, mind you, that apparently they are just having fun. They are having a discussion. So the point is, of course, the role play is there, right? It can be on any activity. Of course, the teacher should be creative, in fact, to decide. Of course, he can give a dialogue, right? Or it can be extempore. For example, teacher just can give in the situation. For example, the teacher can ask them, well, that supposing you are, for example, where you are at a bank, or supposing you are at a post office, or supposing you are at an airport, fine. Or supposing you are what? At an example, where? With a teller, with an accountant. So this is what, and then what would you do, for example, right? So this is what the situation is, that when the role plays are there, and they are asked to pretend as they are in the party and meeting, like we saw in this topic, that, well, the teacher asked them, imagine you are in a party and you are meeting people for the first time. So again, now the student, of course, they pretended that they are in a meeting, in a party, and they are meeting people for the first time, and they, of course, introduce themselves. How do you do? How do you do? I'm so and so. And then they use their identities, the given identities, and again they talk about their profession. So this is one. Again, of course, the concerts mean the songs, in fact, they're important. Well, maybe in the first place, what the teacher does, that he reads a dialogue, in fact, and that dialogue is also with the students, in fact. So the teacher reads the dialogue and students have the copy of that, right? So again, a receptive phase of the lesson, the teacher reads with the music, in fact. So again, see, the students are there. Again, reading skill is there, but again, with reading, a fun reading, in fact, when there is a music at the back, there is indirect, of course, help, support is available, and there is a passage in front of the student, and they read also. So they enjoy reading as well. And the teacher, in fact, the teacher reads, of course. Teacher, in fact, reads by using his articulation, pronunciation, in fact, and students enjoy that reading, in fact. This is the first concert, in fact. And second, again, now, of course, there's no handout with the student. And again, the teacher reads and the students enjoy that reading, of course. So this means the second script is there. Of course, the students are asked to put their script aside. They close their eyes and listen as the teacher reads the dialogue. So again, this way, of course, what you see that, well, the students improve their listening skill, of course, and then they improve their sub skills as well, their pronunciation. Earlier they have seen that dialogue, of course, and now they listen to that dialogue. And now once they have read it, and now they listen to the teacher, their eyes are closed, so they imagine themselves in that world where the things are going on. Clear, students? Yes? So here are some activities. Which activities, my dear students? Yes, the role plays are there, and you can try a role play. If you are doing it, see what improvements can be done. For example, you can have a role play, and you can give different professions also, name the professions, and then if you could have if you could arrange dresses for the people, costumes, you can arrange the costume for the people, or you can have, for example, if you give a role, if you want one of the student to be a doctor, you can bring a stat for him, you can bring a white coat for him. So giving it more fun and more making it a more realistic, giving it a realistic picture, so that can be done. Again, for role plays, yes, you can think and you can be more creative that how role plays can be success, because sometimes the role plays again create a problem in the class. But again, I would say that only in the class where the teacher is not power, when the teacher is not given respect. If the teacher has power in the class and the teacher gets the respect that he deserves, then the role plays would be a success. Otherwise, you might think that, well, and again, of course, you see in the class that when you have the role plays in the class, then what happens? In fact, can you do it well, or you see you find it difficult? If role plays work well, then of course see that what factors make role plays a success, and if the role plays are the failure, then what make them failure. So these things you have to keep in mind. Then again we see of course that role plays, of course, and which kind of role plays, and what should we do? Should we give a situation to our students, or we should provide them a dialogue, a model to the students? Again it's a debatable, of course, that first you give them a model and then ask them to act, right? Or you give them a situation, could be possible, or before giving them that, if you give them the model before coming to the front of the class, so what happens that the students should be able to have an idea of that model. So they should leave their script on their chairs and then come in front, and then they can have that. So again, they might remember a few expressions from them, they can incorporate those expressions and then they can use their own as well. So again, this is what the role plays can be used, and then there could be hundreds, thousands of ways to exploit role plays, and still of course in foreign language teaching, role plays in fact are used and successfully used in fact. So dear students, yes, there are some primary activations also, and then what? Secondary activation. And primary activation, my dear students, what happens? Yeah, students read the target language dialogue out loud. Loud reading, mind you, of course, when you read loud, my dear student, what happens? Yeah, you correct yourself, you improve your pronunciation, and also you improve your comprehension, right? So dear students, of course, primary activation is there, of course, in this method, that well students read, and how they do it? They read as individuals or as in groups, fine. And then of course you have seen in the text that, well, there are three groups of students. One group reads happily, in fact, and one group reads, right, sadly, sad, and third group reads what? But amorously, lovingly, romancely, in fact. Again, see, there are three different situations, right? That one group is very happy, he read the dialogue, of course, happily and showing happiness, and their face show happiness, and then another that group reads sadly. Now their face, of course, the face changes, in fact, and they are sad and they are grim and all that. And then a third phrase, lovingly, in fact, you see. So they read that dialogue romantically, in fact. So there are three, of course, different ways are there. And then of course secondary action, very simple. The primary action, you have seen that what? Singing, dancing, dramatization, and games, in fact, right? So game can be, of course, you can select games for the students. And again, my dear student, of course, as far as games are concerned, well, newspaper is a very good source. Of course, in newspaper you might find different games. You can use games from the newspapers, or you can download games. Language games are there on website. You can download games, and again, see, before using that game, you must be the teacher should know how to use that game, in fact. So that is what secondary activation is there. Again, there is activation, but you see the primary, what is it? See, the student read the target language. Loud reading, of course, is good. Again, reading skill is given the value. And then other activities like fun activities, the dancing, right? Maybe again here the point is that one student comes and dance, and others, maybe others can commentate on his dance, in fact. So that commentary can be there, and this commentary can be one by one, because the commentary can be there, of course. So there can be thousands of activities. So that's why we want you to be creative and designing activities. You should keep on thinking, of course, that and once you will be practical, the teacher, then definitely you would realize that how activities can be designed and what are the needs of the students. So this is again very important, that again I would refer back that where teaching should be subordinated to learning, in fact. So teaching needs to be subordinated to learning. The concept we discussed in the last the silent way, that the learner is important, of course. The need analysis of the learner should be considered, in fact. So dear students, again, what are the advantages and disadvantages of this method? Are there any disadvantages? There could be. No? You all have seen the positive side of the picture. Yeah, you see, you all saw, because there is every activity is there, every healthy activity is there, so there is no disadvantage. All right, fine students. Yes, if you know, advantages of this is what? The motivation and self-confidence. Students are motivated, fine, and it gives them the confidence. In fact, they remain confident all the way, fine. And this motivation and confidence, of course, really again increases, of course, the space of learning the foreign language. So if they are more motivated, and again if they have self-confidence, so they can learn language. Also, they are not stressed. In fact, this method, you see, there is nothing, right, that causes stress for the students. There everything that releases the stress, and at the same time the learning of the language goes on. Like, initially when the teacher says, well, you will be learning the language, right? So, and naturally you will learn, right? And you won't put any efforts for that learning, and the whole class, things are going on. There is a dancing, there is dramatization, there are role plays, there are activities, and all that. But you see, so there is no stress, and you are learning language. And obviously this learning is faster learning. Why? Because you enjoy this learning. So dear students, again there are some disadvantages. You can have a look at that. It's difficult, like I said earlier, that it's difficult to find an ideal environment like this, like the method talks about, that we need much money, of course, we need resources for that. And again, the point is that maybe sometime you have the environment, but the students, in fact, their behavior also important. That the behavior of the student, of course, matters a lot for such environments, because sometimes the students, they exploit things, they mutilate things. But however, for the adults, of course, for the officials, yes, this comfort level can be provided. So you have to see your resources, you have to see your management, and then you can decide on. And of course there are concentration problems. Sometimes you see you are doing one activity, so you may not have the concentration level, of course, so there can be some disadvantages. You can think of more, right? You can think of more advantages and disadvantages of this method. So again, there is an image, you can see that, well, there is a teacher and the students are sitting, the environment helps you out, what's going on. Alright, so dear students, right, if you see this towards the end of this method, very important method, what is it? Learning is facilitated by environment and music. So this is what, again, the making learning what? To facilitate the learning. How can we facilitate learning? By giving what? A good environment, fine. And also we can facilitate learning by having a good classroom environment, and also by giving sound music. And then teacher is the authority in the class. Again, see, and it's really, it's important. Teacher needs to be authority, because in this kind of the learning where it is facilitated through all the possible ways, all the good activities. So obviously there should be somebody, right, who should have authority, and the teacher, of course, deserves that authority for the success of that the learning process. And then if there are some psychological barriers are removed, yeah, of course, that we try to, and then the teacher, in fact, removes the barriers. Teacher prepares the students that they are here to learn, and they will be learning. They won't be they will not be in trouble, and they would naturally learn the language. And this gives the idea. For example, very simple thing, that when you start a course and then you tell the learners, well, this course is a very easy course for you. So that one statement, so in fact, motivates the student that, well, this is fine, that you will learn, there won't be any problem. But if you tell in the very first class that you will fail, this is a very tough course, and maybe next class you might not find, you might find only 70% students. So because 30% might not take that statement positively. So this is what happens. But here if you tell, well, no problem, no worries, there will be fun, there will be activities, there will be natural learning, and you will learn, right? So that really, in fact, prepares the students. So in text, of course, target language and its native languages are given, of course, it's important. So again, very important question, my dear student, before we conclude is, the point is which connections you make between Suggestopedia and your approach to teaching. Again, I told you in the very first day that whatever method we talking about, I discussed earlier, that, well, these are the methods that are of course given by experts, and you need to see your methodology, that how do you teach foreign language, and if you have to take any technique or from this method, which technique would you take, right? And of course, I mean, it doesn't mean that you need to replace your method with this method, that we say that's a very good method, it's a fun learning method, but the point is, yes, see if it works, it's worth, right? So does this method make sense to you? In fact, when you have talked about this, you have listened to lectures, you also have read this chapter from the book, and you also have read a lot on this method. So does it make sense to you? If it makes sense to you, then which level does it make sense to you? Like we saw that maybe, of course, in our situations, in our circumstances, maybe for adults, for the officials, yes, the method holds water. But maybe for the beginners, for in fact the others, or for the grade 10 or college life students, it's a bit challenging. But again, we have to see. Of course, we cannot say anything with the final surety that this method is a success for the adults or a failure for adults. You need to try and see that how does it work, and what problems you face if you use this method. So again, your direct and indirect suggestion can be used. Can we have this direct way or the indirect? Can we have a music and song at the back or not? And should learning be made as enjoyable as possible? Yes, like the method says that learning is a fun learning. Can we do it, by the way? Right? That can be practically applied. This is a big question and challenging question. People who, I mean, generally it is said that of course this Suggestionpedia, if it is administered well, if it is managed well, so really it works. But there are some people who oppose this, well, that it's a fun, and the people remain busy in other activities and their learning is slow. But majority says that the learning is fast through this method. And then of course, if you have to incorporate any of the principle or technique, which one would you use in your teaching methodology? So these are of course some of the questions that we have to keep in mind, my dear students, right? So this method, again, if I sum up at the end, well, the method of course for foreign language teaching that suggest, right, and that the method does what? That de-Suggestionpedia, and then what? Suggestionpedia. The basic concept is that the students are willing to learn, provided we remove their psychological barriers, provided we give them ideal environment, provided we give them excellent classroom environment, provided we give them peripheral learning, provided we of course we help them use of course we take our learners of course a childlike learning experience, or sorry, if we give our learners a childlike learning experience, so then we can say that yes, the method can be a success, a real success, because we found all the good points in the method. We saw that the environment is excellent of the class, and we also saw that there were a lot of fun activities. There was a lot of, I mean, the teacher in fact treats the students. The teacher gives respect to the student, and of course the student also gives respect, and the teacher is also authority. So these things definitely, these factors definitely make this method a real success for foreign language learning. Because generally, if you compare it with other methods, of course, where we saw that the comfort level was not considered. In fact, it was not given that much the value that other methods, of course, have to talk about. So here, the learner-centered approach, we saw that learner was focused. In fact, they are given good environment. They are given excellent the classroom setting also. And then the point is that the correction, of course, they were corrected at the end. They were not, in fact, I mean, if the student makes a mistake, so that errors were tolerated initially. The teacher tolerates, and later he corrects that. Fine. So these are some of the principles that we saw. In fact, again, right before we start the next method, I'll briefly talk about that. Of course, that again, TIQ. What is it? 10 important questions. Then how this method answers those 10 important questions. Remember which questions? Yes, that what are the goals of a teacher using this method, what is the role of the teacher, role of the student, then interaction level between the students and between teacher and students, what else, then of course how language is viewed, how culture is viewed in fact, then which areas of language are of course focused, which skills are focused in fact. So all these things we will, how evaluation is done, how in fact students' error are responded, fine, and what is the role of students' native language. So we will review this thing and then we'll move on to next method. If you have any queries, you can ask. You have time, in fact. Yes, any question? Okay. What do I mean by peripheral learning? Okay. Good question, students. Yeah. I mean, again, it's a very important principle of this method. This method we are talking about. Yeah, peripheral learning is the learning that you learn from learn from the environment. Now, you know that how can we learn from the environment? You must have seen in the classroom where the teachers, in fact, have some posters in the class, and the teacher, of course, have some grammatical structure chart pasted in the classrooms. So ensure that the learning that the students have indirectly from the walls of the classroom, from the charts on the wall, from the grammatical structures on the wall, and from the pictures on the wall, from the maps on the wall. So that is what we call it peripheral learning, in fact. Got it? Any other questions, students? Yes, any other question? Okay, can we use this? All right, fine. Yeah, we can use this method. Fine, provided we have resources, because if you see, as far as the resources are concerned, the method, I mean, needs excellent infrastructure for the language teaching classes. So generally, if you see around that, we don't have that much. And generally, I mean, maybe some institutes, there are some institutes where you can use this method. You have this kind of the classroom that's a Suggestopedia highlights. But overall, of course, right, if you talk about our institutes, so our universities or centers, we don't have that environment. So it seems difficult, right? But it can be done, in fact. So dear students, that's all for today. We will see, inshallah, in the next class, where I will review these principles and we'll discuss that. Thank you very much. It's goodbye.